Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me here. This is wonderful. I greatly appreciate your openness and your willingness to try out some new people. Lent is kind of like the C's candy box. You're getting different types of chocolate creatures here, I guess. Where is Larry today, by the way?
Southminster Prayers.
Southminster. Okay, very good, yeah. Wonderful. Well, my name is Brett Strobel, and I am the pastor at Christ United Methodist Church in Cedar Mill area, and I am delighted to be here. So thank you for having me. As you know, I'm part of a progressive pastors group here at Beaverton, and it has been a real blessing to getting to know Larry and Karen these past few years. We have a wonderful, wonderful group. And if you remember last year, the 5 churches got together and we looked at Diana Butler Bass's book, Religion After Christianity. Is that right? No, Christianity After Religion. Okay. But my congregation is still talking about that experience. It's just a marvelous, marvelous chance for us to get together. And then last summer when we were debriefing, we had said, well, let's exchange pastors. Let's preach in each other's churches. And we were asking ourselves, what is a characteristic about progressive churches that we should lift up? And the fact is, we came up with the idea of asking questions. And so we each kind of came up with our own idea of things to address. And for me, I thought of Job, because he's a guy that likes to ask questions. And so I'm going to read this part for you. It's from Job 9. Starting at verse 14 to 19, and you're going to make sure that I don't mess up. Okay. How then can I answer him? Choosing my words with him. Though I am innocent, I cannot answer him. I must appeal for mercy to my accuser. If I summoned him and he answered me, I do not believe that he would listen to my voice. For he crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause. He will not let me get my breath, but fills me with bitterness. If it is a contest of strength, he's the strong one. If it is a matter of justice, who can summon him? Though I am innocent, my own mouth will condemn me. Though I am blameless, he would prove me perverse. If I say, I'll forget my complaint, I'll put off my sad countenance and be of good cheer, I become afraid of all my suffering, for I know you will not hold me innocent. I shall be condemned. Why then do I labor in vain? If I wash myself with soap and cleanse my hands with lye, yet you will plunge me into filth, and my own clothes will abhor me. For he is not immortal, as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. There is no umpire between us who might lay his hand upon us. If he would take his rod away from me, and not let dread of him terrify me, then I would speak without fear of him. For I know I am not what I am thought to be. Big questions. Job is a great example of faith in that he's not afraid to ask those really big questions that can't be satisfied with those bite-sized little dogmatic answers. Have you ever noticed that when we ask big questions, we kind of look up? Have you ever noticed that? Why? So it's written over here on the ceiling. Oh, there it is. Or written in the stars or something. I don't know why we do that, but I do think that it is a good thing to look up and wonder. Speaking of which, a little over a couple of weeks ago, did you notice that physicists were popping champagne corks and doing handsprings? Yes, they were. They were. You may have heard about it. Well, about 100 years ago, Albert Einstein published his work on a general theory of relativity. And he asserted that gravity warps space-time. Now, matter of fact, before Einstein came along, we talked about space and time as two different things. But now, with Einstein, we're talking space-time. It's like one word. Or if you're really daring, you put a hyphen in there. And it says that gravity will warp space-time. And so his work had shaped physics for the 20th and the 21st century. Well, a rather very expensive experiment was set up at the Advanced Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. Wouldn't that be great to say you worked there? Just so you could say it. Well, it measured the subtle differences in light emissions, and it detected quantum ripples that are about a fraction of the size of a proton. And scientists didn't wait long until they detected these gravitational waves causing a distortion in space and time. Maybe you felt it. A little deja vu going on there. Maybe, I don't know. Well, apparently, over 1 billion years ago, two huge black holes obligingly collided. And in that collision and merging, they sent out these quantum ripples, these gravitational waves, and it proved Einstein's prediction was spot on the money. And so not only has the findings kind of affirmed that physics has been on the right track, it also infused a new excitement and new, no pun intended, energy into physics for years to come. So what does this mean for all of us? I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. But it does take us, I think, a step closer into understanding the universe. And by extension, understanding ourselves. Who knows? Who knows? This may help us to achieve interstellar travel. And I hope that doesn't sound too science fiction-y. But pushing the envelope of human existence is a part of what makes us who we are. That's the way God made us. We are explorers that are infused with curiosity. Think about it. Some 60,000 years ago, we left our caves because there was something more than hunger driving us, and that was curiosity. We mounted a hill, we discovered a glow, and we reached out and grasped fire. We came to a mountain and we climbed to its summit. We looked out across and we saw water. And so we harnessed the winds and we sailed the seas. We reached a distant shore. And we only stayed there long enough to wash our clothes, pack our bags, and hitch a wagon as we headed west. And then we reached the other side of that land. We settled in, we looked up, and we saw the moon. And now we have rockets and shuttles that take us for a spin around the global block. We are explorers. We are meant to be adventurers, not only discovering what the universe is made of, but discovering what we're made of. It's like the story of the reporter who was asked why he had climbed this very, very tall mountain in South America. Why did you do that? Was it because the mountain was there? And he said, no, it's because I was. Yes. Well, along the way, we also realized that one of the greatest expeditions we can go on is the expedition to the human heart. That's why Job, I think Job is right up there with Odysseus and Ferdinand Magellan and Marco Polo and James Cook and Lewis and Clark and Yuri Gagarin and Neil Armstrong. He's an explorer of a moral universe. Now, how many of you read Job, by the way? Some of you have read Job. It is an amazing book. It is a fabulous, amazing book. It's one of the most amazing books, I think, because he boldly dares explore the moral universe and tests its veracity. Some folks probably don't see it that way. You go to the commentaries, and some describe Job as either being presumptuous, obscurant, and even egotistical. But I don't. I like Job. I like Job because I think he was one who wasn't content to sit in a cave of provincialism. That he dared to question the conventional wisdom and to shake heaven's gate for the sake of something that is more real, for something that was deeper, for something that was more authentic. If you didn't know, or maybe you know, the book of Job comes from a very, very old tale called the Suffering Servant. And somewhere in there, they took this small little story and took a little razor blade, just kind of cut it in half, and inserted these very highly structured poems into this story. And it is taking on the issue called theodicy. Have you heard of theodicy? Yes, some of you have. But it's trying to understand the ineffable ways of God, especially in the light of suffering and evil in the world. And so, in a nutshell, it says this: if God is all-knowing and all-powerful and all-good, then why is there evil and suffering in the world? Is this a new question for you? We've been asking this question for eons. Well, when you think about it, if God were merely two of those things, there would be absolutely no problem at all. There wouldn't. God could be all-knowing and all-good, but not have the power to stop suffering. God could be all-powerful and all-good, but not be aware of suffering. Or God could be all-knowing and all-powerful and not care two figs about suffering. Two of the three, there's no problem. But when you take all three and you mesh them together, then you got a problem. And it deserves our attention instead of kind of a stoic shrug. You know? Well, so you have Job on this theodicy odyssey, if you will. And the story opens up with introduction of our hero. He is righteous, and dynamitus. And the Bible says he is the greatest of all the people on the east. He was one of the most pious, and this is not your sanctimonious piety. This is genuine and it's sincere. So we end prologue, we begin action. We find ourselves in the middle of a quasi-celestial cocktail party. And God and Satan start chatting. Now, what I need to do, first off, is this really looks a bit odd, because we have John Milton running in the back of our brains here. And so we have to take John out and set him aside for a second and realize that this story was written long before all of this stuff about the devil was really developed. Satan, I don't know if you knew this, Satan in the Hebrew word means an adversary or an opponent, if you will. And so in the book of Job, he is, as Barbara Brown Taylor says, he's a perfectly respectable member of God's cabinet. He is a divine being who served as a divine prosecutor. His job was to test humanity at God's bidding. That is to cut through the pretense and peel back the veneer. And he was quite skilled at it. And so, whenever we think of God and Satan talking, it's usually with this big, booming, sonorous voice, echoing over cosmic canyons, with Carmen Marina playing in the background. But not here. Here, this is this light conversation. And maybe there's some hubbub going on back there, maybe clinking of silverware or crystal and stuff. And they're making small talk. God asks, "So, where you been?" And Satan replies, "Oh, here and there, to and fro, you know how it is." Yeah. Same. What about my servant Job there? Isn't he something else? And Satan gives a nonchalant, whatever. I mean, devotion is easy when you have everything you could ever want. Health, wealth, comfort, prosperity, respect, security. You take that away, and he'd be singing a different tune. "Oh yeah," says God. "We'll just see about that. You do your worst, but don't touch Job." And so begins this experiment in pious virtue. And Satan does a very thorough job of it. It's like a really bad country western song. He loses his house, he loses his job, he loses his wealth, his dog, his pickup. I mean, just everything. It's all gone. It's all gone. And what does he do? Tears the robe, sits in the dirt and ashes, shaves the head, say, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." So at the next party, God bumps into Satan over the cheese tray and says, "See, I told you, ain't he something?" But Satan's still not impressed. He goes, "Skin for skin. All the people have, they will give to save their skin. But you stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." God thinks about it. "Okay, I'll see you curse your curse and raise you one piety. Do your worst, but don't kill him." And there it goes. And Satan's right. Job does change his tune, but not the way that prosecutor expected. Job speaks out of his pain, and he questions, and he asks the question that I think most people ask. Why, God? Why? What did I do to deserve this? It just doesn't make sense. I may have screwed up somewhere along the way, but the punishment doesn't fit the crime. You don't execute somebody for stepping on the grass. And Job was talking this way when his friends show up for a little pastoral intervention. The hitch is that his friends have about as much sensitivity training as a drill sergeant. And so he's sitting there, and they're silent for a week, and then they light into him, saying, listen, Joe, you must have done something to deserve it. You reap what you sow. So fess up, move on. God punishes the guilty and blesses the innocent, and that's the way of things. And Job, despite this peer pressure, Job isn't going for any of their fortune cookie theology. It's not a matter of pride, you see. It's a matter of integrity for him. Small-minded, sanctimonious moralisms just don't cut it. Besides, there's a flaw in their logic. They're doing what they call affirming the consequent. They are taking Job's suffering as confirmation of his guilt. However, we have to keep this in mind, and this is where things get a bit rough. You see, there has not been, from the get-go, a scrap of evidence brought against him. It's all conjecture on their part. And, matter of fact, we know from the beginning of the story that what brought on Job's misery was that he was a decent guy. He was blameless and upright. Job personifies that saying that no good deed goes unpunished. You know. And I think we're meant to sympathize with Job. And our challenge is his challenge. How do we get to the end of the drama without slipping into, any type of nihilism, pessimism, an emptiness? How do we get to the end without that? Life is not simple, and it's not fair. Unfair things happen. You just have to open your eyes, said Job, and see how the innocent suffer at the prosperity of the wicked. I didn't do anything to deserve this. I am not what you think I am. I've been faithful and I've been honest with God, and I just want to know why. Now, it may sound presumptuous. It may sound presumptuous and overreaching, especially in today's reading where his question pushes the very limit of this universe of justice, the very limit he has. Now, if you have a legitimate complaint against God, who do you go to? If you don't like the ruling of the Supreme Court, to whom do you appeal? He says he's got me. I lost before I even started. And it is an astonishingly profound question. Who's going to arbitrate your case against God? You see, what Job is doing is that he is in the middle of this celestial experiment on piety, and it is in this collision between the gravity wells of convention and mystery, and he asks a question that sends ripples all across the universe of justice. Now, it may be the postmodern in me, but I like Job. See, he pushes us to the very precipice of meaning without falling into nihilism. He relentlessly deconstructs these very simplistic answers, and that still offends people. You can complain and moan all you want, but you step over the line for some when you try to hold God accountable to the limits of human ethical standards. God's supposed to be beyond that, right? So, Job may have got it wrong. Job may have got it wrong. But I can't help but feel that if Job got it wrong, he also got it right. He dared to ask the big and the tough questions nonetheless. And in the end, here's the punchline. In the end, God vindicates Job. Did you know that? Chapter 42. God turns to Eliphaz, and Eliphaz is kind of like the head henchman of these pastoral counselors. God says, Eliphaz, I am angry at you and your cronies. You haven't said a thing about me that's right, as my servant Job has. Job got it right. And why is that? Why does God say Job got it right? Because we're moral creatures. And we're explorers. We're supposed to push it to the edge, to make sense and meaning out of this grand play we call life. And Job was doing just that. He was exploring the breadth and the depth of a moral universe that is so much vaster than the simplistic, conventional ones that was being spun by his friends. We're supposed to search. We're supposed to question. We're supposed to question the hard things in life, to explore it, to tear it apart. Why? Because to think is to glorify God as well. To question God in the universe, to scrutinize conventional wisdom, it doesn't relativize morality. It deepens our humanity. That's why God made us the way God made us. Why we have curiosity. Why we even have a capacity to question. Why? Because we left the cave. And we set out on this Odyssean adventure to find out what we're made of. You know, Einstein, he said the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. And one cannot help but be in awe when one contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. And I suppose that's why we have places like this. Why we have churches and cathedrals and synagogues and mosques and temples, and why we have sanctuaries. A sanctuary is a sacred space, a sacred place that's designed to make us bigger when we leave than when we came in. We're meant to question, to grow big. Job shows us how to do that. He shows us how to stand on the edge of convention and mystery and ask the questions that send ripples across the cosmos. The day will come, says Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, when after harnessing space, the winds, the tides, and gravitation, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And on that day, for the second time in history, we will have grasped fire. And so, my friends, you brave-hearted people who give your time and your energy and your talents to come to this space, to ask questions. Thank God for you. Amen.